Let me just fiddle around volumes.
Hi.
Just checking we're working. Are we coming through in the YouTube? Jake?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Oh, story of my life.
Nothing over the music yet.
Okay, cool. I've stopped the music, so.
There we go. Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear it now.
Sweet. Hey, well, 3 concurrent viewers and 2 of those are you and me. So,
yeah.
to the 2 people tuned in. It just went up to 4. Oh,
Woohoo!
man. Oh, we're back for another week of punishment. And as usual, I don't know what it is, like, because some people might know we disappeared for a couple of months while Jake was moving and stuff like that. And so it was like, yeah, we're gonna do stuff. And we haven't been more disorganized than ever before. Did I say that right? Man, I don't know. My English ain't great today. So
ain't no good at that English. Hey, Benjamin Franklin.
Hey, so 15 minutes ago. Oh, I know. I think I know who Benjamin Franklin is. Because who says oil like that? I'm assuming I know who it is. Anyway, so was it about 15 minutes before we started? And I'm like, hey, Jake. And you're like, oh, that's right. Time zone differences because...
That's right. You're an hour ahead of me.
Queensland and the rest of Australia... Well, actually, no. Western Australia's the same, isn't it? Queensland and the rest of the eastern seaboard have a fundamental disagreement about the time. And
the Northern Territory do daylight savings?
Maybe, maybe not. I don't
I
know.
don't
The
know.
Eastern Seaboard,
Yeah,
definitely. The Eastern states.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
I didn't finish work until like 6:15, and then a ton of traffic, so I was home at 7:10. At that stage, I probably should have pinged Jake and started getting ready, but no, I had dinner.
Like a
Which, I
sensible
mean,
person.
that's reasonable, guys. I can't be hungry. Well, I probably could. I mean, anyway, um, so yeah, but we got a plan. So if you watched a couple of weeks back, 3 weeks ago, uh, playing around making a little directory scanner in Python. So I figured it's good to add a few more things. Since when has Northern Territory counted? I mean, they're a territory; they're not even really a state. So who cares?
Fair enough.
Nothing wrong with the Northern Territory. I'm sure there's reasons to go there. I've never been. I nearly went. I was in Mount Isa once, and Mount Isa is maybe, I think it was like 2 hours from the border, maybe an hour and a half. But then I was like, nah, I can't be bothered. Just to go to the
Nice.
border and then be like, I've been there and then been back seemed like overkill. Well, actually, the irony is
It's not worth saying that you've been there.
the distance between Sydney, where I was pretty much living at the time, and Mount Isa was so great. And I drove there that the trip to the Northern Territory would have been nothing. 2 hours, you'd be like, ha! Considering every day to drive there was a 10-hour day, so.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Man. Anyway, also, NordVPN announced they got hacked. It happened last
Oh,
year.
did they?
Yeah, one of their servers in Finland, they were in a data center, and the data center provider had some software. I'm guessing because, like, that was a rack or something, or maybe they bought the servers off the data center provider, or it was something to do with VMs or whatever. Although, I don't... If you're a VPN provider, you'd think it'd be better to run your stuff on physical kit. That way there's less chance of... Or at least if you're going to run VMs, that you run it on your own server infrastructure. But anyway, the data center
I would have
manager
thought so, yeah.
had some dodgy app that installed for remote management that they hadn't told them about. And so there was
Oh,
some...
no.
Yeah. So it was only on one server in Finland, they're pretty sure. And I mean, I guess you'd have to be pretty upfront about how bad it was, otherwise people might not listen. So they did an audit of everything, and it was nothing else. But still,
Well, considering your whole business is based around trust, and then when something goes wrong, you want to be able to maintain that trust as much as possible. So yeah, being open is the best option.
One of the dodgy things was, though, they were like, they only took an SSL certificate key or TLS certificate key that's expired, except it's expired now when they announced. It wasn't expired at the time of the breach. And with that, you could still see whatever someone was, like, the end destination of what people were trying to get to. Or maybe just the next top IP address, I suppose, if you can't, like, you need SNI and some other magic to figure out exactly where a TLS connection's going, but still, it's a concern if a VPN provider... When security companies have security vulnerabilities, like Avira Antivirus just had one as well. And there was another one that had a virus. Yeah, when security tech has security vulnerabilities, that sometimes a pretty rookie move. Like, it goes to show that while NordVPN might do some pen testing and audits and stuff, like, they don't know what's on all of their servers or how they're all managed, because I suppose they've got thousands all over the world, or hundreds at least. So that is a unique problem to manage, whereas, well, I suppose actually I've worked for major corporates that have the same problem and everything's in the one data center. So, it's neither here nor there.
It can happen to everyone.
Indeed. If you think you're invulnerable to the issue, you might be wrong. Let me just adjust some levels there. Okie dokes. So, it should have jumped over to... I just tried... So I was switching over to VMware, and I just tried opening using VMware from inside OBS. That is how not on the ball I am. So
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
promise, guys, we will get to higher quality streams. We will get there. We will figure it out.
Eventually, one day, we will have one that goes perfectly smooth.
Like what we
And
used
that day
to.
will be celebrated.
Yeah, well, it probably comes with preparation. So,
True.
anyway, jumping back into where we were, I'm just seeing the little preview in the YouTube thing I see. There we go, it is updating. I'm paranoid that it's not working and I don't know why.
No,
Anyway,
it's all fine.
sweet. So, what we were doing all that time ago, and you get to experience me looking at my own code a couple of weeks after, or a month after I last saw it, is it's like what are all those memes on Programming Humor? Or it's like, you know, you look at your own code and you're
Friday, I'll
like,
deal with this on
yeah.
Monday. And Monday, what the hell am I doing?
Actually, I've been doing some deving at work, and there was a few things in my POC I'd thrown together that didn't work out overly well. So I made a few kludges to get stuff working, and then the next day I literally forgot how I'd done it with the kludges, and so I had to do it all again, but properly. I have this I go through these moments where I think I'm going to do something really fancy, and I shouldn't. I should just go with the basics. Anyway, so where we got to last time was I've created this. So in the last one, I talked a bit about Python syntax. Probably skip that a bit and assume you either know or you'll figure it, or you just have to listen to the sound of my voice. So we created our class called Derspam because that's what I called this thing. We've got a fixed list of, well, I say fixed list, a list of all of the response codes we're actively interested in because they tend to indicate something's there. And then I've called them borderline codes, response codes, but they're not. They're response codes that may indicate something's there, maybe not. A 400 from memory is the server got something it didn't like and just gives you an unauthorized. That could mean it was a poorly formatted request to a legitimate thing, or it could just mean the actual server middleware component didn't like the format of the request and it never actually made it to your actual application.
Yeah, it
Most
could be
modern
like a
apps,
default response.
if you've only ever done PHP, then Apache is the server and application. If you do stuff in other languages like Python, Java, Ruby, take your pick, then that application is actually... So Java, so Tomcat is like the application server for Java apps. I'm sure there are others like WebSphere and stuff like that, and JBoss. Python, you've got things like Django and Flask that are their own little web servers. And you'd normally stick a proper web server in front of those because it gives you load balancing, some reverse proxying, probably better management of connections and stuff like that. So if your middleware's throwing a 400, it might not mean there's anything in your app. So that's why, and same with 500s, they're the same sort of deal. Either your web server, like Apache or Nginx, has seen something it doesn't like and can't understand, or your app has seen something it doesn't like or can't understand, and it may have done that on a legitimate URL, it might not have. So they're less useful at indicating there's something there, whereas all these ones, the 200s are, yes, there was something there, and it returned, or returned a cache one or something like that, and then the 301 is a redirect somewhere else, and then the 401, 403, 405 are unauthorized, but there's something there. So we go through, load some words from a word list, which I've got here. It's literally just the English top 1,000 words, and then right at the top are a few words that I threw in specifically because they trigger on the little web server I've got running. As you can see, the results down here from the last run. That does some stuff. That's where it actually makes the call. Yes. I did this in URL lib, so I wanted to have no external dependencies. So
Yes.
So URL lib is stock Python. You may see a lot of things talk about requests. So requests is a very useful library, and I'd use it almost anywhere else. The reason why I didn't use it here is if you were let's say on a pen test or a CTF, and you were on a server deep in a network, and all you had was Python, then you could use this without having to try and get requests on there. So, because from experience, trying to ghetto load in other dependencies, other libraries like requests or Flask or whatever is a pain in the ass. So something that's pure vanilla Python is always useful. Argparse and multiprocessing as well. Argparse helps you parse in command line arguments, and multiprocessing does multiprocessing. What else we got? So that's where it makes a call, and then it's checking if it can open the URL. If I get any of these errors, then so this one will just say there was an error when I was trying to call that particular URL with the word list. And then if it receives a URL error, which is normally like, hey, nothing responded at all, or DNS failed, then you get this one. Last time I had a massive issue where I was like, why isn't it working? And it was because I had this quit there. I didn't have these. Like if I was doing a proper job, I'd probably throw meaningful exceptions and have meaningful error requests. Sorry, not error requests, meaningful error kind of codes and responses. So in the case of URL lib, they throw errors when you get anything except a successful, so a 200 or a 300, which is annoying. So I had to capture, if I got anything back that was a HTTP error, catch it and just set the response code to that. It's funny. I have to read my own code. I mean, as long as it's good, it's not too bad if I can understand it. And then URL errors where there was like a DNS error or something. And it'll just dump out the reason and can't connect and then quit. Then that is not being used. Thank you, PyCharm. And then checking the response code, and then it dumps some stuff out. So, maybe you could change it so that it dumps stuff out to a file as well. Using it a lot like you would dirbuster or gobuster. So you just look at the output there rather than write it to a file, although I probably could add that. And then it prints the result and returns the result. Interesting. And then that's just setting everything up. So this is the argparse stuff. So it'll take the arguments and do some stuff. And then, because that was a class, instantiate it. The thread pool stuff happens outside of the class. I initially tried to have it happen in the class with some stuff, but it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And then that just does some stuff and then prints out all the results. So that runs 10 threads, and I think there was just over 1,000 words in the list. So it splits them into 100 each and kind of runs through them. So speeds it up a bit. I think I can show if I go 1. There it is going at 1, and it takes a while. If I go 10. Things like multi-threading aren't often taught, much faster, aren't often taught in like security-related scripting. It tends to be, because that's moving into the realms of, like if you're trying to do a... Reese rants. Yes, it's just me talking. So if you're trying to do a quick ghetto script, like the mindset of understanding threading and how it can apply can be a bit of a pain. So you normally ignore it and go, for the mental time spent in figuring out how to get threading working, I can just write the thing and wait for it to finish. But if it's something that's going to be used again and again or over a large amount of data, it can be useful. Quickly, threading is just spinning off, I suppose... In some cases, they're sub-processors. I think in Windows, they're proper sub-processors. In Linux, they're just kind of child things. I'm not really an expert on the idea, but the idea is independently of each other, they can all process their chunk of data and give it all back to you. So it's quite useful for speeding up work when you'd have to wait in sequence, because in sequence, a web server might always have, let's say, a 50 millisecond overhead for one request. If you give it 2 requests at once for both, it's still only a 50 millisecond overhead. For 10, it's only a 50 millisecond overhead. So it's to an extent going parallel. So I suppose where we should get started is like what next. So Jake, give me a feature from like gobuster, and I'll try and implement it.
Well, you were mentioning before the easy one of just writing the results to a file.
Oh yes, cool beans. Well, so
and that's something that's fairly basic to a lot of those automated tooling apps.
So let's add an argument again. Oh gosh. Why is my... Oh, far out. This is the joy of VMware. Is if you go outside the app window, it goes, you mustn't be...
Python thread's a single process.
Yes. So on Windows, it's... I found this out the hard way because everything I was doing here ran like a dog on Windows. And that's because it does stuff differently. But yeah, so Python is a single process. I think it might even be single threaded, and it's just doing time division multiplexing. So the idea is rather than having one thing and only one thing at a time, you jump between lots of different tasks. Again, though, you still get the speed boost because of what's happening at the other end. Like it may be low processing at your end and high per request at their end, so it still works. JavaScript is the ultimate in making you think it's multi-threaded with all of its non-blocking stuff, which was a head spin the first time I had to figure it out, and if I have to ever do it again, it'll be a head spin again. Output file. Oh, gosh, I can't type to save myself. Oh man, come on, brain. Yes. So, whereas other languages like threading in C and .NET and Java is properly, context switching. Yes. So, whereas other languages can have proper like multi-threading and processes. Video games are a great example of it because they're doing a lot of things at once. I mean, at the end of the day, you only have a limited number of CPUs. Hyper-threading is effectively time division multiplexing on one CPU anyway, so... either way, it speeds things up a bit. Also, particularly multi-processing, so this whole import the thread pool thing, is a simple way to do it. So, talking a lot about programming stuff for a security stream is pretty funny. Anyway, fine. So you give it a function and some data to work on, so a list that can be broken up into bits of work. That's just divided by the thread pool. And it figures out how to make everything thread safe and join all your results back and stuff like that. Whereas with threading, kind of, especially some stuff I've done in Java natively, you have to do that yourself. So if you're sharing data between them, you either have to break it up and give it to each thread or have a central thing that's thread safe. The idea being that two threads can't try and access and affect something at once.
C# the same in terms of it's a lot more manual in order to make your app thread safe or the task you want to run thread safe.
Multiprocess does a separate processors with separate memory. Yeah, I definitely know who that is. There's only one person I know who knows so much about the internals of Python. Good old Benjamin Franklin. Not only could he not tell a lie, but he knows a lot about Python. Anyway, so this is where we're up to. So we've added our argument, so a new argument. So simple enough. You just add them to this. So argparse kind of object, and then you tell it parse everything that comes in the sys.argv, which I haven't imported sys, but to see that, so everything kind of shows up there already. This kind of parses that for you, so you don't have to sit there and figure it all out yourself. So then args.whatever just comes in. So now I have to remember how to check if something exists in Python. Man, this always makes me feel dumb.
Do you do like does the open... This is me off the top of my head. Does the open stuff do file checking? You
can't do if variable equals none because it goes variable doesn't exist. That's right. You can do a try except and accept name error. Apparently you can do if something is none. This is the thing, is I always try isset, except isset was a PHP thing, not a...
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so my bad. You can do like an A in vars or A in globals sort of deal. What I will do is, so we've got our results. So, man. Okay, so we can do a try. We'll go pass for a sec. And accept. Pretty sure it was accept, wasn't it? Yes. Except it's lowercase. I keep forgetting that this isn't. Accept.
He's empty.
Look at my awesome typing. Oh man. How is it? How dumb am I that I have to see how it was spelt? Except a. Oh no, that's right. I have to go error as a. Is error or exception? Yeah, exception. Cool. This is, by the way, really bad practice in Python, just to go... Well, not really bad practice. You might have your last... Up here, you know how we've got 2 accepts? So it'll go, right, try this. Did I get this error? No. Did I get this error? No. You can keep on going and then end with a finally. At the end of all of those accepts, you might have accept exception as E. So exception is the most generic thing. So you've got specific exception types like... Oh, I say exceptions. These are errors. There is a difference between the two. An exception is... I ran into a case that should end the program. And an error is a case where I've ran into an error that should be handled. So you could choose to end the program on an error as well. I think that's the way they work. Maybe it's the other way around. This is... I'm just going off the top of my head here. Anyway, Jake, you can maybe Google that in the background while I continue.
Okay.
Anyway, so I can just go try, accept. I'll go pass again for a sec. And then, so pass is just the like no operation in Python. It just lets you fill stuff like syntax out without actually having to do anything. So try with open what was it again? args dot output, because that'll just be the name of the file to write to, and it doesn't need those bad boys, and we want to be able to write to it as it's going to call it out file, and then we want to go... Oh man, jeez, it just goes to show how little I actually write to files in Python. I read plenty enough. That file dot, I think it's right. Is it lines or just right? I'm going to try just right. And we had results. Cool. So the with thing's pretty cool. It's like a... You can think of it like a... I think someone referred to it as like a context manager. So if you with something and that normally has like some sort of handle that needs to be closed, this will manage all that for you. So it's quite handy. So you don't actually... You used to have to go like open this, you know, and then close this. And certainly you still have to in things like PHP, but you don't, you don't have to here. It's good. It handles all of that stuff for you. Accept exception is E. We don't really care. Doesn't need to do anything. This will only run if output's set. If I've got this right. I could have this very wrong. And this could also be considered very lazy programming. Output results.text. And we have a results.txt. Could it be that I got it right?
First go.
No, I did not.
Damn.
I created the file. It is empty as can be. Did you get anywhere on your exception versus error?
No. So specifically with Python.
Yeah.
Well, these first ones that I am reading, I don't really have much to do about it. It just sort of says errors are usually syntax problems and exceptions are like issues with the code itself.
Oh, okay.
But this is like a dumb, one of those sort of articles on.
There's someone writing for those clicks.
Yeah, basically.
That should have worked. Let me double check. File. File.write results.
Yeah, so this only sort of says that exceptions are during runtime. Yeah. Specifically in terms of Python, whereas errors are more when you try and run the app. So not while the app is running. It's like almost the code parsing stage.
I just realized
not
what my issue was.
Not compile, but the Python equivalent.
I'm an idiot. Results is a list of strings, not a string. So.
So you did have it right. You were just not putting the right thing in the file.
The better place to put this would be in here to leverage the same thing. But anyway, so two conflicting instincts. One of them is if you write the same bit of code twice, then you can probably collapse things down. But the other thing is there's a bit of a Python. I was going to say a bit of a Python around culture. I mean, a bit of a culture around Python of things like early optimization is bad. So thinking, I could just work this in here could lead to more complexity. So I'll just leave it here for the minute. This should work. Oops, that won't work now. Missed the control key when I was doing my instinctual save. And okay, so the other final thing is new lines. Let's double check. I shouldn't have to delete anything in the file. It should, yes. Cool. So the just W by itself overwrites anything in the file. So effectively deletes the contents and starts from scratch. Sweet. So we get the results in a file. That bit was easy enough. Threads. We could probably do the same for a number of threads as well. But the thing about exceptions and errors, so that's the Python runtime itself. So I suppose that gives you... So what was it again? Errors are...
Well, this says that errors are when you try and run the app, whereas exceptions are while the app is running.
Yes, okay, so with Python
that itself, seems to be the only real difference anyone cares about when they're talking about it.
So if I deliberately added an issue in here, so if I say for result int results, added a t, it should go...
Yeah, so that's
syntax
an error.
error. So that's an error. So an error is something where your app should just stop. In Python itself, that is expressed through, it doesn't even try and run and get to this point. Other languages like PHP will execute, because they don't pre-validate the code. Yeah. They just execute top to bottom. Python's top to bottom as well, but they do a sanity pass to check if it'll even run.
It's kind of the Python equivalent of like a compile error.
Yeah. And then an exception, which is interesting because these up here are errors. So But in our context, we don't care. Like, so we'll definitely for this one because we want to get all the error codes. But I suppose if you got a 404, you can't really do anything, so you should just terminate. Whereas an exception is something you should handle. So, you may say, I take strings that are only 10 characters long and no longer, and you might have an exception, and then you might just truncate down to 10 characters in the exception and continue. Yeah. Quite commonly, you get that with like password things. So rather than going, oh, your password's longer than I expect, they just silently cut it in the background, which on the surface of it seems fine. Password managers look fine. People who type in complicated passwords, the actual problem is that it gives people a false sense that their password's longer than it really is. So if you do have a limitation around the maximum length of a password in an app you've written, better you hard error and go, your password was too long, than silently let it through and just truncate it, because someone may think that their awesome 25 character long password is working for them when it's not. Yes. Anyway, so threads. This should be easy enough. I'm going to do the naive thing first and just go args.threads. And you'll see why this is naive in a sec. So if we go threads, if I go threads 5. That's good. It thinks it's a string anyway. Which is actually good. I think you can set type with argparse.
I feel like I've seen it in the past.
I'm pretty sure I've done it in the past. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. The most ghetto way to do this, though, is just... Where were we? Threads. Again, I'm going to show you why this is bad in a second. There you go. But if I go 5D, it'll error. So could probably do a check earlier and go, hey, this should be actually... No, I'll do it properly. We'll do it with argparse.
Do it proper.
Check type. I could just use the join, couldn't I? Sorry, I was just looking at the YouTube comments. Looking at argparse now. So, okay, so add argument and there's a type. You can go type. Sweet. So I could just go type equals int. Does that need to be in a string? No. Cool. So, yes. Sweet. So this is what the help looks like with argparse. It does all this for you. Just says invalid in... Oh, yeah, int value. Yeah, sweet. So if I go 5, it runs. Sweet. Otherwise, you could do your own little... Check the value. You'd have to do this with... If you were using the args from the system, like from CS, you'd have to write your own logic. You go, if this thing is an integer, let it through. If not, die. I suppose I could set an upper limit on it. I mean, 1 million threads probably wouldn't work, but that gives us threading. Well, next, Jacob. File types, I suppose.
Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, here we go. This is an example of it's gone to broad exception clause. So that's where you've gone exception. When really... you should probably be more specific to the type of exception. So you want to check, did I have problems writing to the file system? Because this could be an exception as in this doesn't exist. So args.output isn't set. So if I do this. So this is kind of useful in a security context. I've tested a few apps that do really bad error handling and give you too much information. So... If I get rid of that, see it works because it's caught. If I just go print boo. That says bow. Let me try that again. And an extra O. Yeah, so what happens is that's missing, so it goes exception. But this could exist, but it might not have, if I go back up to the one that has that, but it might be an issue with a variable not existing. Which will give me a boo again. I think it's e.reason, yeah. Actually, print e. Yeah, so there's any number of reasons why you might get an error. Oh, man. Yeah, so expected string bytes are os.pathlike object, not none type, which is what that was, because there's nothing there. So maybe, yeah, you can just go if this is none. Or it could fail to write to the file because it's an invalid path. You're trying to write to somewhere that doesn't exist. Or there isn't permission to write there. That sort of stuff. So in theory, there's a bunch of exceptions you might want to handle. Rather than just the one ghetto this. But I'll leave it there for the minute. What next, Jacob? Another feature. Oh yeah, file types. That's what I said. So if we go parser.add argument. Gee, why am I typing? I can just copy and paste one. Thread count. I like the highest quality 1,000 thread count threads.
Do it. Do 1,000 threads.
Okay. Threads. 1,000. And now it's very slow. To the point where it might not actually run. Or I might have smashed my web server on the other end.
It could also be that, yeah. It can't handle 1,000 concurrent requests.
Yeah. And rather than doing it slowly, it just dies. Well, there's an attack called Slow Loris that works like that. So what you do is you got your web server. It may have the ability to assign back. So ports work in two directions. You could think of it as like the receiving port and sending port. What happens is when you contact a web server, your computer talks out on an arbitrary high port. So I think ephemeral ports are anything over 30-something thousand. Your web browser will talk out on an available one of those to port 80 on the server. The server will receive that on port 80 and hand that off to another process to talk back to you on your the port you originally communicated on. So it will respond back from another ephemeral high port. Through the magic of TCP, that'll get considered a session, and firewalls figure it all out, and you're all good. So what happens, though, is there's only so many of those ephemeral ports a process can do. So if the server had a 30-second timeout, you could just send it very slow requests as many times as you want and consume all the ports. And not ever you're stretching the processor of the server. It's just going, I can't do anything for you. So, because there's no available ports. Also, fun thing to do on ancient mainframes that have dodgy TCP/IP stacks is you run Nmap on them, and it does a half open scan. So a half open is do you remember back to uni, the SYNAC SYN? Yeah. Yep. So first is I'm pretty sure SYN stands for synchronize. So the request to start exchanging. Then the server responds back with I acknowledge your synchronizing request, and then it itself sends back a sync request, and you send a final acknowledge.
And the half open is you don't acknowledge.
Yeah, so you don't do the final step. So it's sitting there, and I think it might not do it for that long. I think it might just sit there for a period of time before it times out and lets you use the port again. But it's enough to cause problems, especially in banking systems that are all meant to be real time. Cool. Okay. So, now what was it doing again, Jake? File types, that's right.
Yes.
Wow. It's some high quality work from us. So we'll just go types. And then file types separated by, and we'll do the same thing as gobuster, and we'll let me just remove my brain fart that I've just had. Did I accidentally hit insert? Yes, I did. And we don't need the type. I just realized that. Sweet. So we want to take a list of file types like text, PHP, JPEG, and find those. Because searching for, I think on my word list.txt, I've even ghettoed it up. It searches for index.php and secrets.txt. So if I get rid of those, it'll never find them because to anyone watching this, it's generally fairly obvious that .text and .php are just a part of the rest of this string. They're nothing special. So, and that's really obvious on Linux where you don't have file extensions for stuff. You don't have to. So the web server is just going to see index or Terry or secrets and go, I've got a secrets.txt, but I don't have a secret, so I'm not giving you anything. So we want to, now for every one of these, go through and check all of our extensions. So let us continue. So back up here, check URL path. Ext equals none. So in Python, if you set something like this in a function signature or input parameters, effectively it says this argument goes here. If it's not set, if it's not actually set when it's called, just set it to none. So it defaults to none, which is good because then I can use that. Yes. Because then I can basically have two versions of this: a version that doesn't try and loop through everything, and a version that does. Actually, I know I can probably make this even simpler. Just that. Now I need to think hard about what function you split. That's right. Okay, cool. So, for ext, just gonna call this. This is my ghetto normal paradigm for ext in. I have the plural version and the singular version. .split.
That's fairly normal, I think.
I just realized though, I'll need to add one of those boys, I think. Otherwise it won't work. This is me trying to do it without any extra kind of code to check. It might run it twice per thing now though. Because what does that equal? Okay. Print. Oh gosh, just gone off the screen again. Print string dot strings with a capital S.
Capital.
Split. Oh, string is not defined. Because I can just do that. Okay, so that gives me 2 empty strings. That's not what I want. I don't want this to run twice. And in fact, if it's just got 1 in there by itself, then I don't want to do that either. What if it's just empty? Oh, it just gives me 1. Okay, no, that will work. I don't need to kind of set 1. Oh, of course it'll just give me 1, because it'll split it and give you the string back. If there's nothing to split it on, you'll just get the 1 back. Yeah, okay.
Makes sense to me.
This works. Sweet. So this means... So part of, like, the joy of programming sometimes is figuring out the simplest way to do things, so not bothering to worry about checking this. I just go, you know what? All good. If it's one garbled thing because someone's mashed the keyboard, it'll check one garbled thing. Although it does occur to me, we do want it to check if this was... my bad. Gosh, I've done it again. I do want a comma there because that's where it checks. But if I just had text, I want it to check for text files and empty file, like text files and no extension at all.
But doesn't that mean it will always check for text, no matter what?
Yeah, it'll always append. It'll always append text. So, which is maybe why I should just have. You know what? Again, I'm not going to try and fathom this out too early. I'll just have this one here, and I'll just yoink. Tabs. I mean, I can just go for ext in exts. Dot split. There. Cool. URL equals self dot base URL plus word plus a dot plus our extension. That should do all the same validation. Oh, that'll run once. Yeah, so I still need to set this back to something that I can just go, hey. None. If X. Another thing in Python is none evaluates to false. And if you remember Boolean logic back, like I remember this in uni, like you'd always go if something equals false, but then you can actually just go if false, or if true. So in our case, if X is none, this won't run. So it's checking if it's true. So I don't actually need to worry about anything else. So if it hasn't been set, it's all good. Now, where's that called? It's called... so I'm passing in words. I'm trying to remember. I think it's like this. The only challenge here is... This is a problem with working backwards. Like I've worked from where I actually want the logic to run to where I call it. And you're like, how am I going to do that? Because args.types, if it's not set, it's going to give me a... let me get out of this thing. So at the moment it's not set. Oh, somehow it worked. If I go types, text, PHP, now it errors. Where did it error? I think there's a the way I have to pass arguments through with thread pull or pull.
Is that because are you going to thread off per list, like per file extension? Is that what you're trying to?
Function 1, 2, 3. Oh, because you just give it a list. You can't give it two things. It just takes one. This might be a bit trickier. So this thing is designed to take one argument and split it up. You can't give it two.
Yeah, okay.
And that is because... and that's because if you give it two things, it's got to try and split them up, and one of those things is 1,000 long, and the other one of them's one string at this stage. So that's not going to work. It's not designed to do that. But
yeah, okay.
there is a way around that, which is just self dot extensions. I know it's on my bed. You don't need a self at that level in the class. So what we can do is set the extensions before we run the function. So where's the function? Oh gosh. Yeah, we'll still need that. Instead, it's going to be if self.extensions, then for a moment I was like, I spelled extensions correctly, but I'd forgotten to add the self. Okay. Self.extensions.split. Cool. So what we will do is instead of trying to set it there, before we run that, so we just go Derspammer.extensions equals args dot types. I've also done another bad thing, or I've called it types here and I've called it extensions up there, so so they're going to work. Yes. So we got all the PHPs. And all we have is PHPs. Something
so it's not looking
there.
for the texts.
Well, either that or actually, because I'm still writing results, it might just be more than the buffer can handle.
Okay. Because it's done 1,000 texts and then 1,000 PHP.
So if I go to results. Nope, it's... Oh, I know why. Yeah. So I've just made another Reese move. Okay, so what happens is code execution comes in here. It goes, right, response code equals this. Base URL plus word equals this. So that's the URL to query. I'll do undo my queries to get the response code. And then I will come to here. And even if I want to check the blank one, what'll happen, it'll go, oh, I know. I'll run this 3 times. Overriding the same response code output. And then the only thing I get is the word, which also changes because I'm using the same... Oh, the URL... Yeah, the word changes because I'm doing all of this business. No, the word doesn't change, actually, sorry, but the URL changes.
New microphones, why? Are they bad quality or better quality?
Are we louder or quieter or too much distortion? I've been using the same mic.
I'm on the same one as well.
I just turned the volume up on my preamp. I think I did. Anyway. train of thought. So all I'm doing is overriding. So I kind of want to change my logic to... And I can actually think already of better ways to do this, but when this first one runs, because we're just... Oh, I don't want the return there. Okay, so what I want is... Results can be an empty array. Plus equal to res. That's right. That's none of that in Python. I always forget that. Equals... No, it's .append. It's a list. So Python, fairly straightforward to add stuff to a list. You just .append. So we'll do that there. And then we do that here. Except we also want all this logic. Again, there's better ways to do this, but for the purposes of getting this working, we do that there, and we do that there, and we don't want to do that. Oh yeah, no, we do want to do that there. Sweet. So this will run and append whatever it gets, and then this will run if there's extensions. And then we can get rid of this. And then we just return res. Short for results. And we probably want to print that as well. This should now work as advertised.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, now we went to results. I'll close and reopen it just to be sure.
That's a whole lot of PHP.
Oh, nope.
And not a lot of text.
My hack did not solve the problem. Okay, this is some live debugging going on here. We're almost done as well. It's 9 or 8 p.m. your time. Yeah. Okay. So it comes in, does its thing. We'll get rid of the res equals, because that's probably not helping. Oh, I've got it twice. Would you look at that? Okay, so does its thing, goes and checks URL, checks the response code, prints it out, and appends it to results. Return results. That would be why. Interesting that we get that. Oh, maybe it's because there's no new lines. Let me check results.txt. Well, there's your problem.
There's your problem.
Okay, return results. So, what am I doing wrong? I mean, there's plenty I'm doing wrong. It all started when I was born, and it's kind of come right up to now. So if I get rid of it printing these ones...
Is your loop just not looping through the text ones? So like it's only looping on the first item, which is PHP, and then it's not looping on the next item, which should be text?
Well, actually... Okay, no, so it's getting everything. Oh. It's dumping out like a list of 2 things. So I have to think for a second.
No, That's right, isn't it? It's checking it without a file extension, and then it's checking it with a file extension. So see, it's doing /bob and then /bob.php.
I think I'm running into problems with threading. So, oh no, it should combine all the results. So that's per thread. It's only showing me the PHP though. So this is what the set of results for each thread looks like. And then it should munge them all together at the end. So pull.map. So it should combine all of the results together. So this is what, for some reason though, it's when I print res, it's printing. Why is it just doing the PHP though? And then nothing to my results file. Man, I have to think too hard. Print results. More fun. Oops. Where are you, terminal? Can only concatenate list, not string to list. Let me double check. So it's just seeing if Benjamin Franklin had any useful insight. Okay, so what happens is we get our chunk of things to check, and we go and grab the extensions from the class we're in. So self.extensions, which was set down here, and we're setting it to text and PHP. So the first time I get a word, so let's say that word was yet. So we come through, it goes right.
Check the base part.
So goes the base URL plus our word yet. We get our response.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be, and then with that we go through and figure out if it's something we want or something we don't want. Then we print out our response. I'm going to go...
Is self.extensions a string with comma-separated string?
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So if you can see before this massive list gets pumped out, it's actually... I'm printing something I shouldn't be printing. This is where all that noise is coming from. For result and results. Okay. I'll just get rid of that for the minute. Sweet. Okay, so this bit might be working again, so I can get rid of...
Well, so it's printing your file extension, but then it's not printing it's not trying to do a response on it.
So it's only checking wind1 and PHP together 1, window 1 together tonight 1. Oh, that's because I am dumb. I'm adding that to it there. Sweet. Okay.
But awesome. It was printing TXT. You know how before you had the print ext?
Yeah.
So it was actually looping through it for the text as well.
So what's happening though is... I know why. Let me just... Whoop. Wrong indent. So I want it to write every loop.
Yep.
Sweet. So if I then go text PHP JPEG. Why did I... Okay, so now I'll check JPEG as well. I probably only want it to show me the successful ones as well. That's probably something else to do, is like only show...
don't show 404s, yeah.
Yeah, don't show Baboons. Anyway, let's get this writing to a file. Right, so that's all working now. That might have been why my results were... No, it wasn't, because that still didn't write. So if I get rid of this now, because this should then go through what comes out the other side.
Yeah, and that should have... Yeah, we go. It's got some text and some PHP and some JPEGs in there.
Every result... So results... If I just print results... I'll get rid of these again for a second. Go print results. It'll be like a multi-dimensional array.
Yeah.
So an array of arrays, so 2 dimensions, where every sub-array is 3 long.
Yeah.
Which is the results.
It's each of the words in the word list.
Yeah. And I know why, because I've got that there. This is the fun with threading, is you run into, like, as you change data types to try and make things more useful, you end up shooting yourself in your foot. Because each one of the passes of the function, every time the function runs with a word, produces an array. So...
And then when it joins them all back together, it's joining an array into an array.
An array of arrays. Yeah. Results kind of needs to be outside of this context, but I think you start running into thread-safe stuff when you're trying to write back to the same list or array from memory. Certainly that was a problem in Java. I mean, I can give it a punt. It's not going to work very nice, though, I think. But that's because this can only return one result. So the problem is that this can only return one thing. It can't return multiple things. There's probably a way to add all of these arrays together at the end. Or I can be brave. Yeah.
Into a single one.
Let's see what happens.
Change the scope and then add them all up there.
This might not work. I don't know how Python does this. Self.results.append, and where's the other one?
Use .extend.
.extend.
Is it even self.extensions, not class name.extensions?
Oh, that was before with the extensions issue, I think.
Right.
Yeah, we're through that now. We're on to a new one. Return nothing. We don't need to return anything. Printing results won't work anymore. It's printing Derspam .results. This might not work. I've done this before, but you have to, like in Java, you have to set up thread-safe objects so that when multiple things are writing to it, because they're all trying to write to the same spot in memory, it can all be done without causing issues. So, especially when you're dealing with I suppose like a linked list. Well, maybe not so much a linked list, but an int. If everything was trying to update a field, you kind of get race conditions, like where 2 things are trying to update it at once, and that may affect the stability of your application.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're well and truly into like ghetto messy programming.
Extend is append, but for a list to a list.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'd still have the problem that this was originally scoped to this function, so every time this function ran, it would still only do a thing. And results, nothing. Yeah, it's not appending back. Probably because it might actually get its own copy of the whole class structure and its thread. And so I'm not actually accessing the correct object anymore. There's like 10 objects that got destroyed when everything finished running. Anyway, this is getting to the point where it's beyond my day-to-day. Normally I'd then spend the next 15 minutes pondering what might solve my problem and figure it out that way. But that's going to be really boring for people, so I might leave it there. One other thing that I thought, if anyone's interested in, I'll stick it in the comment as well at some point, is Jake and I had a bit of fun a while ago. Oh, gosh, go away, Firefox. Trying to create little reversing challenges just for the hell of it for each other. Let me open up Firefox here. So if anyone is interested, created this one. Hopefully it doesn't actually directly have the answer in it. Maybe it does.
I don't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
It was that long ago.
So I just created this little piece of fun. So if you're at all interested in trying to figure out what it does to get the top secret flag, have fun, I guess. Actually, the flag's in the README, isn't it? I'm not going to open the README. So if anyone's interested in that, go and have a look. Otherwise, have fun. It's been... oh, gosh. Things are all over the place here. Firefox. You're back. So, there we are. Not that anyone can see, I'm now battling with Firefox. Actually, I'm thinking Benjamin Franklin. Again, the man who could not tell a lie. I think you're lying with that name. Anyway, the irony. Why have I mental blanked again, Jacob? Save me from myself.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
The easy option for solving my list problems is after I get everything back, it'd be fairly straightforward to write something that uses .extend right at the end, so you get your results back and it's your array of arrays. Then you just go, here's a new empty array to add items to, and then you just go for array in array, a new array .extend with that, and that'd solve it as well. I just like solving problems earlier on up the thing, but maybe you can't. But effectively, it's then writing your own map function, because all the map function does is take all the results and combine them back. So I'm then just writing another map function that takes all the results and combines them back. Anyway,
yeah,
that's all from us this week. Have fun.
Thanks.
Stay safe, and I swear. I mean, I was sick yesterday because I was going to let's prepare yesterday. Yeah, list comprehension. Actually, yes, list comprehension would do it too. Anyway, so next week we're going to actually try and prepare well before, so that it's not me at 2 going, you know what, I'll just do this. Although it is kind of fun, I suppose, interesting. Hopefully it's interesting watching someone else think through problems. Anyway, see you later, guys.
See ya.